With the long-awaited Super Mario Bros. Movie right around the corner, the internet has been rife with hype and speculation over what surprises might be in store. It looks like a fun, inoffensive romp that I'm guessing won't be groundbreaking or rapturously praised, but will be received warmly and please enough people to be considered a success. 30 years ago though, it didn't go quite as smoothly with the release of the live-action Mario flick. Back then, this was a big deal. It was the first film to use a video game as its source material at a time when gaming wasn't as accepted as it is today. We take cinematic adaptations of video games for granted now, with everything from Resident Evil and Assassin's Creed to Sonic the Hedgehog and Pokemon having had the big screen treatment. While it's heartening in a way for gamers to see their medium appreciated by a wider audience, a regrettable pattern has also emerged. Painfully low review scores. According to reviews aggregator Rotten Tomatoes, of the 44 live-action video game movies theatrically released throughout the world to date, the highest scoring one has hit 86%. However, the vast majority fall well below the halfway mark, right down to 0%, a dishonour held by the unwatchable Tekken film of 2009. This seems too common an occurrence to be a series of coincidences, and it's led many to theorise as to why these films invariably suck. A common argument is that the immersive player-controlled appeal of games is lost when the controller is taken out of the audience's hands, creating a fundamental disconnect between the creation and the consumer. It then becomes harder to suspend your disbelief when faced with the inherent surrealism of gaming. Mario is a series in which a rotund plumber kicks tortoises, harnesses the power of mushrooms, and prunes carnivorous plants in order to save a princess from a reptilian overlord. It sounds like the diary of a madman, but when you as the player are given the power to control such chaos, it becomes madcap addictive fun. When that personal connection is taken away though, things can turn out differently. A run of hugely successful definitive platformers through the preceding years had already cemented Mario as the biggest star in gaming, primed for merchandising to the point that Nintendo, a company infamously defensive of its intellectual property, handed temporary control of the mustachioed plumber to producers Roland Joffe and Jake Eberts to take him to Hollywood. Directing duties were then granted to Rocky Morton and Annabelle Jankel, known for the co-creation of Channel 4's Max Headroom in the UK, in the hope that they could cast a darker, more mature aesthetic over the game series' sunny charm. For better or worse, they succeeded. An ostensible origin story, the movie depicts Mario, played by Bob Hoskins, and Luigi, played by John Leguizamo, as down-on-their-luck Brooklyn plumbers. A busman's holiday for Hoskins, who had a brief tenure as a real-life plumber before setting his colleague's foot on fire. A day that starts with him scrambling to fix a broken dishwasher ends with him discovering a parallel Blade Runner-esque world in which dinosaurs have evolved to the level of human sophistication. Its evil ruler, King Koopa, played by Dennis Hopper, plots to use Princess Daisy, played by Samantha Mathis, a paleontology student abandoned as a child and unaware of her royal ancestry, to merge and conquer both worlds, and it falls upon the brothers to save the day. Despite these grand designs for a revolutionary retconning of the game's continuity, including a reportedly beautiful script by prolific English writing team Dick Clement and Ian LaFreniere, the movie was underfunded, forcing the producers to go cap in hand to money-minded investors who were adamant that it should be a child-friendly comedy as opposed to the more interesting, emotional and sophisticated drama that the directors had envisioned.
Monkey!
The subsequent rewrite was handed to the directors at the 11th hour, casting the production into disarray, a theme that would continue for the duration of filming. I interviewed Rocky Morton several years ago, who told me that the producers decided to have the script completely rewritten about 10 days before principal photography began, even though he'd storyboarded the entire film with the props and green screen shots already designed from it. Outraged, he ended up sending them to Valhalla by burning them in the parking lot. He and Annabelle had been close to walking away at that point, unable to decide whether to quit and land everybody in trouble or bear the directorial cross, even though he had the sense the film might be dead on arrival. Naively, he chose the latter option, which he now sees as the wrong one, and by his own admission, paid the price. With these behind-the-scenes issues, conflicts of interest, and the threat of a $2 million fine from Nintendo if the team didn't meet a tight deadline, the end result was a film that holds the unfortunate legacy of establishing video game adaptations as shoddy, shallow cash-ins. Several weeks behind schedule and bloated and bastardised beyond recognition, Super Mario Bros. Ended up having something of a corrosive effect on every involved party. Hoskins and Leguizamo reportedly resorted to alcohol to get through filming, inertial overseers turned the director's experience into a living hell, and the band Roxette even grew disdainful of their power ballad Almost Unreal, which they unwittingly contributed to the soundtrack, having written it originally for Disney's Hocus Pocus. "This ain't no game," read the film's tagline. Or, to paraphrase, "this isn't going to be fun." However, taking into account the original concepts of the film, as well as the initial enthusiasm of those involved, it becomes evident that Super Mario Bros. Isn't a fundamentally bad movie as much as it is a missed opportunity. Morton's conceit was that the video games would come to be seen as a retelling of the film. It would be a tale of brotherhood, exploring the complex relationship between the orphaned Mario and Luigi and depicting how their strong fraternal bond came to be. External pressures derailed that original plan though, and several minor details were also lost, which could have helped shape a more palpable in-film universe. For instance, the dystopian Dino Hatton relies on electric vehicles because fossil fuels are banned since they're the remnants of the dino-humans' ancestors. Intricate touches like this were swept aside in favour of derivative running into glass panel gags. As an irate Dennis Hopper asserted on set, if it's not in the script, it's not on the screen. Samantha Mathis told me that early on it became apparent there were a lot of cooks in the kitchen and that she felt that the script had a lot of problems, but that the calibre of people associated with the project reassured her that they were aiming to make something special. However, she could sense animosity between the overwhelmed directors and an impatient, frustrated Bob Hoskins. Despite its well-documented flaws, the film has, to a degree, managed to claw its way out of the fiery pit of critical condemnation and garner a cult following. It's something that can often be said about bad movies in general. Look at the kitschy fandom attributed to Tommy Wiseau's The Room, the origins of which were even chronicled in 2017's The Disaster Artist.
Oh, hi Mark.
There's no clear explanation for this phenomenon of venerating cinematic misfires. A hipster social trend? Collective schadenfreude? Poor judgment? In the case of Super Mario Bros., it can likely be attributed to nostalgia for 80s and 90s gamers. Again, a time when the hobby was far less widely accepted than it is now. This has even led to the comprehensive fan site Super Mario Bros. The Movie Archive, a treasure trove of scripts, props and merchandise, as well as a webcomic produced with one of the film's writers, and privately funded restorations, paving the way for the Blu-ray release of the film in the UK in 2014. The site's owners told me Super Mario Bros. Was too often deemed by the internet as the worst movie ever, but they felt it was just misrepresented and wanted to create a place where people could learn more about it and revel in the nostalgia. Editor Stephen Applebaum even attributes more highbrow cerebral concepts to the Mario games, such as Occidentalism, Western archetypes such as Italian Americans portrayed through Oriental storytelling. Therefore, when it comes to the film, Westerners reframing an already Occidental Japanese story, including English directors who were more attuned to the idea of a monarchy, had the potential to create a thought-provoking melting pot of literary ideas. While the average viewer is unlikely to ever appreciate the film on such a philosophical level, Super Mario Bros. Did find acclaim in certain areas despite its odious 29% on the tomato meter, which has risen from 14% over the last few years. In particular, it earned praise for its visual effects, which were cutting edge at the time but went underappreciated due to the film's lack of success. Morton had been involved in CGI since its infancy. Beyond his Max Headroom credit, he and Annabelle Jankel were also the first directors to harness such graphics in a music video. Elvis Costello's Accidents Will Happen in 1979, and the first to make an entirely CGI commercial for Pirelli. Super Mario Bros. Is also lauded by its visual effects supervisor Christopher Woods, who to this day speaks highly of his team's work and is ardent on having it recognised through restorative efforts. It was even a runner-up nominee for the Best Visual Effects Award at the 1994 Oscars, but was pipped to the post by The Nightmare Before Christmas, in which distributor Disney had more of a vested interest and for which they lobbied harder for a nomination. The winner that year was, understandably, Jurassic Park, but Super Mario Bros. Boasted its own impressive digital dinosaur in the form of Yoshi, depicted here as a Spielberg-worthy infant tyrannosaur, as opposed to a cuddly anthropomorphic sidekick. Much like Ryan and Steven of the Super Mario Bros. Movie Archive have found solace with other fans via the website, the actors found similar support in each other at the time of filming. There was a palpable tension on set as well as injury. Hoskins had to spend a part of the film wearing a cast in his hand after Leguizamo harshly braked the van they were travelling in, crushing his on-screen brother's fingers in the sliding door. Still, the cast got along famously, bonding and finding greater creative satisfaction in their offset activities. Samantha spent downtime reading Shakespeare with her mother, actress Bibi Besh, and co-star Fiona Shaw, and speaks highly of a whirlwind press tour of Japan with Hoskins and Leguizamo, where monks even prayed for the movie's success. She also looks back fondly on her time with the late Dennis Hopper, even if their introduction was made awkward when she experienced a revealing wardrobe malfunction. And so, 30 years later, Super Mario Bros., regardless of its infamy, has carved out a certain sentimentality in the minds of third-generation gamers, a demographic whose collaborative use of online media often brings rekindled appreciation and, occasionally, new understanding to childhood ephemera. The directors and actors behind Super Mario Bros. Have come to terms with its flaws and are ultimately proud of what their medium-bending effort represents. To them, the fact it's treated more warmly in hindsight, albeit sometimes with tongue-in-cheek, comes as no surprise. Rocky still meets people who tell him it was their favourite film as a kid, believing that they tapped into the imagination and expansiveness of the Mario world. Samantha, similarly, still has people approach her who are excited to talk to Princess Daisy, and believes that even her messiest role meaning something to somebody is the highest praise she could ask for as an actor. The director surmises that the press were really against it because there was a moral panic about video games at the time and parents were outraged that Hollywood were making movies out of it.
Video games are turning many young people into addicts and making them aggressive, according to a new report.
It's dangerous for the children and it's dangerous for the public.
The kids didn't care about the criticism though, they were just along for the ride, while gamers thought, finally, here's a movie for us. In that regard, things have changed a lot in gaming. It's certainly more mainstream and accepted within popular culture, particularly when it comes to film and TV adaptations, and any lingering moral outrage has largely been reduced to background noise. As you watch and hopefully enjoy the new Mario flick, spare a thought for the original Super Mario Bros., a movie ahead of its time with great expectations, but destined to never be one of the greats.